Hi people, my name is again as always and as usual. Yeah, you can tell what the topic is going to be about. Well, those that are familiar with the topic based on the header. In this segment, in this video, and again, before I continue, you can find the article associated with this video in which this video will be embedded. Linked in the description. Hold on. I want complete darkness. Oh, scary. Now, this video is going to be on Daath, the Kabbalistic seed of Daath. That's how Daath is pronounced, and it's spelled D-A-A-T-H. So D-A-A-T-H. Sometimes they add an apostrophe after the first A. So D-A-A-T-H. So again, Daath is what this video is going to be about. Now, a couple of things that I can tell you about Daath is that within the Kabbalah, Daath is quite unknown. So that's why I decided to cover it. Daath is quite unknown. It is very, it's very obscure. And I mean, yeah, what else can I say about Daath? You'll find Daath in the Kabbalah, both the Tree of Life and the Tree of Death. But it's obscured essentially between the spheres of Keter, in any case the top sphere, and Tiferet, or Uranus and the Sun, essentially. Again, Daath is very obscure and is very, how should I put it? Unclassified, that's the best way to put it. The planet that is associated with Daath, astrologically and within occult workings, is Pluto. And yeah, so that's why I decided to cover Daath. No one that I can possibly think of has covered Daath. It's very shrouded in mystery and no one really discusses it. It's literally just the best way to describe Daath in the occult is that it's unclassified. It's just unclassified. I've rarely heard someone talk about Daath and whatnot. Now, I do need a little bit of light from my computer for this one, so yeah, I'm going to have to open it here. Now, the information that I have on Daath, due to own research and stuff like that, Daath is kind of an anti-sphere, but at the same time dualistic, much like Mars, hence Daath being represented by Pluto. And at its strongest in the same signs that Mars is strong in. Yes, that's correct. Okay, Daath is like a fusion essentially in a map, or a mixture somewhat between Mars and Saturn. Okay, that's why generally speaking the planets with the most destructive power and potential are Mars, Saturn, Pluto, and the Moon. Okay, but Mars, Saturn, and the Moon are the classical ones, or those that belong to the several classical planets. Pluto, like I said, Pluto is literally completely unclassified occult-wise. Rarely do people even mention or work with Plutonian spirits that I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, since based on the affiliation with Pluto, you can clearly tell that it has a lot in common with Mars, because the same way that Mars is strong in the signs it rules over, Aries, Scorpio, and also, not that it rules over that, but it's also strong in Capricorn, very strong. Pluto has quite similar traits, astrologically as well as occult-wise overall. Pluto is strong, at its strongest in Scorpio. Pluto is seen as the modern ruler of Scorpio, whereas Mars is the classical ruler, and it's also strong in Capricorn. For the rest, it has several signs it can be strong in, but that's purely within the confines of astrology and overall, in a generic or general occult sense. Yeah, I already have data on Pluto astrologically. This is purely about Daath as a Kabbalistic sphere. It's also known that the spirits Abaddon and Choronzon have affiliations with Daath. That is correct. Okay, you can find the article on Abaddon linked in the description of this video. Linked in the article that this video aligns with, so it's associated with. Again, like I said in the beginning, you can find that linked in the description. You'll find the link to Abaddon's article as well as video in that description. In the article itself that I'm referring to. Okay, that this video is in alignment with, as well as will be embedded in. as well as Abaddon's video will be linked at the end screen. It'll be placed in the end screen. Now, Choronzon, yeah, I'm familiar with Choronzon. Choronzon is essentially a dark, potentially infernal spirit. It's not that there is an alignment that essentially inhabits this sphere. I'm not going to say a lot about Choronzon. We'll just leave it at that. Dat's duty Kabbalistically is to see to destructive workings that can either be constructive or destructive. That's why Dat can be attributed to both the tree of life and death. Dat is somewhat of a fringe aspect, but it's just for that purpose exactly that it's associated with Pluto. Yeah, and that's why it's unclassified, okay? Dat, Pluto perfectly represents Dat. It pretty much is the only planet that can represent Dat so accurately until another one comes along, so to speak. Dat is literally just unclassified. Dat is like, it's like, well, it is essentially the hypothetical entry point between the tree of life and death. So between all the benevolent cosmic forces that make up the universe as we know, all the spiritual forces that work together in perfect harmony, and on the opposite end in perfect disharmony, in order to manifest in the material world as well as overall throughout the cosmos, and of course the antisphere, the tree of death, that represents the exact opposite essentially. And that is like the hypothetical perfect intermediary. That is like the opening essentially. It's like the in-between between hypothetical heaven and hell. Let's just put it that way. It's like that perfect shade of gray between black and white. Let me just put it that way, or vice versa, white and black. What else can I say? So yeah, for that reason, that the best way to describe that is fringe, honestly. Really just unclassified. And it's also for that reason that that is represented by Pluto. That can do both good and evil. Similar to Mars, but Mars in a different way. But nevertheless quite similar. The same way that Mars is capable of dealing out punishment when necessary, essentially committing evil for the sake of it being necessary, similar to Saturn. That essentially does that as well. But that is essentially the finest example of, not being able to be categorized. That is like, nope, you can't categorize me. Nope. I'm all over the place. That's how you can call that, essentially all over the place Kabbalistically. Both capable of good and evil, but again, there is no clear distinction between the two. It's just all completely mixed and scattered about spiritually. So on the one hand, that deals with strength through unity, and on the other hand, that deals with complete fracturization and scattering of energies, okay, that leads to disharmony and destruction and dismay, and it just goes on. Or the exact opposite, to strength and power. But generally speaking, similar to Pluto, what Pluto represents astrologically, that essentially deals with cosmic forces that are capable of, that rule over, or that preside over dealing with over essentially exerting their influence over the world in relation to the attributes that I mentioned earlier. So essentially, you can clearly tell the way that I'm describing this. That's because it's really hard to, based on how I'm describing this, that it's hard to pinpoint that. That is literally just completely unclassified, because by definition it's I think hypothetically speaking unclassifiable, as in you can't classify it, okay? It's really non-classifiable. Let's just put it that way. Literally N/C. Yeah. What else was I gonna say? That. And yeah, the entities that reside in that, or that as a whole, and the entities that inhabit it, they preside over forces in the world. For example, in the material world, they deal with decisions, whether it be positive or negative, sometimes both, that encompass or have an effect on a great amount of people. We're talking about an entire country's population or an entire continent even, let's just put it that way. That's what that deals with. That's the best way to describe it. Now, in relation to what that looks like as a Kabbalistic sphere, as an aspect of creation, just for the purposes of this subject, obviously, I viewed that, and that is just the abyss, honestly. The general descriptions that you'll come across if you look up online sources about what that is by definition, it's known as the spiritual abyss. It really does look like that spiritually. It's just an abyss. It's literally like a bottomless pit, a huge bottomless pit, like a huge black hole, but not the same as a black hole. It's just a bottomless pit, and you keep descending deeper down and down and down and down, and there is no end. And you hear like slight, weird, echoing, horror-like noises in the background. Sometimes they're horrific, other times they're just neutral. You hear, like, for example, if someone were to be in a cavern or in a cave system and they were to yell really far, and you'd hear like an echo. But at the same time, it can also sound really scary, like typical horror movie stuff. Yeah, I don't know exactly what example to give. I'm gonna see if I can find an audio clip online just to show you guys. You can find it in the article. If you don't see anything, then that means that I wasn't able to find one. But again, it's like a rolling echo. Like when someone says, and it just echoes throughout the entire abyss. And you can hear maybe one or two people screaming. You hear like crater-like noises, or like let's just say a mini volcanic eruption or explosion. Like in the distance, everything is really just, it just looks like honestly a typical supernatural horror movie with darkness as the primary theme. So yeah, that's what that looks like as a spiritual sphere. When you astral project that, that's what you're going to see. And that is inhabited by both demonic-looking creatures as well as Enkoronson, the one that I mentioned earlier, the spirit Koronson. He is like the head of them in general. But there are others like him. And in terms of the more benevolent ones, these are angelic-looking spirits. And yes, there are angels that inhabit that as well. And yeah, speaking of that, that literally has no ruler. There is no entity or archangel that rules over that. There is none. Okay, it's like a mixture between Samael, the archangel Samael, and Tzadkil with a P. So the ruler of Mars and the ruler of Saturn. But they carry out dual tasks essentially, but only in a metaphorical way. So only theoretically speaking. That has no ruler. And see, that's what I mean exactly. That is literally non-classificable. Okay, non-classifiable. That has no ruler, and the spirits that reside in that, they also have no ruler. They have no one that's the head, no one that's the main, no one has the this, the that, etc. Nope. So yeah, that's definitely something that you need to remember. Any sorcerer that watches this and is essentially going to, like, they're going to dive into that, metaphorically speaking, they're going to, like, essentially try to see what I saw, and you name it. You'll see for yourself exactly what I'm talking about. You'll never, as a magician, any magician watching this, you'll openly tell me I've never come into contact with such a sphere that represented duality so much, that literally just represented essentially everything and nothing, in the sense, not alpha and omega wise, everything and nothing in the sense that, hey, I can't classify this. It's like, imagine a country without a ruling body. Imagine a country without a president, a prime minister, without a thingy. I mean, it does have a parliament, but there is no hierarchy. There is no hierarchical or hierarchy-based structure. There is no clear level of hierarchy, no power structure, as in, hey, this person resides here over, that person resides there over, etc. That's what that is like. That is like complete anarchy, honestly. A society built on anarchy, essentially, and yet it still functions somehow. But in that case, obviously, based on the fact that it's spiritual and divine in nature and necessary, then yeah, it will still function. Okay, believe me, it's like something that something that you can only imagine in science fiction, an actual country that functions without any kind of power structure within society, and yet it still manages to hold its own. That's really unique. And again, any sorcerer watching this that will do as I said earlier and will try to come into contact with that will immediately see exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to be like, wow, okay. Yeah, in my career as an occultist, I've never encountered a sphere that embodied the aforementioned so much, a sphere that literally, an aspect of creation that is lawless and lacks any kind of governing body or power structure, even in the slightest of senses, and yet it's like all over the place, and yet it's still structurally coherent. Quite interesting. So yeah, that's what that looks like. I did for you guys cover an angel from that. He is the most prominent angel I could find. He is definitely one of the, at the very least, one of the most prominent. Arguably, he is the guy that if you want to contact an angel, so the head angel from that, and you're like, okay, who's in charge of that? This guy has the highest probability of appearing, honestly. There are others like him within that, but he is definitely at the very least one of the most prominent, and I spoke to him. His name is Alexandroshna. I repeat, Alexandroshna. It sounds Russian. It's spelled Alexandrosjna. The C essentially is pronounced as an SK. No, sorry, a KS. So Alex. Essentially, like you're saying, ALEKS. But in actuality, that's how it's spelled. Again, consult the article. You'll see for yourself how his name is spelled and how it's written down. In any case, it's pronounced Alexandroshna. I repeat, Alexandroshna. He is an angel from that specializes in all things relating to the zodiac sign Gemini. So, but really, we're talking about really ridiculously skilled. On a scale of 0 to 10, his level of proficiency in terms of making you competent in all things of a Gemini nature is a 9.5. So like almost perfect. I repeat, his name is Alexandroshna. He has a strong Gemini influence. He told me he's very linguistically inclined. I noticed that the second I saw him, because he had his voice is quite clear, quite charming. You can tell that he has a good speech impediment. He has no speech impediment whatsoever, like quite the opposite. He is very fluent and very smooth linguistically and vocally. It's like, imagine all the accents in the world mixed into one. That's a metaphorical way to describe it, or at the very least several accents from different dialects of languages spoken in the world put into one. That's it. In the beginning, I heard him in a friend's voice, but that's because he simply took that friend's voice out of my head. Very strong linguistic and Gemini influence, Gemini-related influences. And that's literally what he specializes in. For the rest, he can also do the basic things that Dart is known for based on the description, based on what I said earlier, so Pluto, causing destruction and upheaval, but that's not his specialty, he says. He says on a scale of 0 to 10, his level of destruction is like a 5 or a 6, but of course he'll do so when he's commanded to, because it's his duty, of course. But his specialty is really all things relating to Gemini in relation to what people want to work with him for. His appearance is an angel dressed in hazel brown / sky blue clothing with 2 swords of average length. So 2 average medieval crusader swords, like I want to say like between half a meter approximately in length, maybe less even. So he holds dual swords, and he also has dual sickles. They're quite nice looking, and his robe is really beautiful. It's like a t-shirt with nice, like almost baggy pants, but they're white, but they have like an emblem, and it's like sky blue mixed with hazel brown. The hazel brown part stands for dot, okay, because that's the color of dot in general. Not that dot has a specific color, but yeah, that's the best you'll get. It's like a mixture between Mars's red and Saturn's black. So it's brown in nature, dark brown, quite similar to the color that Saturn has in astrology, the glyph specifically, or the icon or symbol. Now, what else can I say? Yeah, and that's essentially it. So the rest is quite beautiful. He has black hair, but his hair can also be slightly blonde or hazel. But black in general is what he's content with. Yeah, his alignment, he says he's celestial, but even as such, he's still fringe-like. So like I said, he's also capable of negative acts of destruction, necessary acts of destruction. So again, he essentially told me, yeah, I'm an angel, but even as an angel, even celestial, I'm not infernal, but even as a celestial angel, I'm fringe, I'm non-classifiable, so you can't really classify me. I can also commit acts of brutality and gruesomeness, but of course, when it has to be done, in alignment with the sphere that I inhabit, and or otherwise. And yeah, that's essentially it, guys. For anybody that wants to connect with, Alexandroshna, let me see. Okay, he's showing me a seal, but it's not really necessary. They can just use your name, right? Yeah, all you have to do is you don't need a seal. All you have to do, he says, is use his name with fixed or focused intent. As in, hey, I want to communicate with, or I want to see Alexandroshna, the angel from the sphere of Dot. Okay, the sphere that aligns with Pluto. The angel Alexandroshna, the Dot angel Alexandroshna. And that's essentially it. So that is all. Let me know if you have any questions, and goodbye. That's why I did this in darkness. To essentially bring the entire feel of that's why I did this in darkness, to bring the entire feel of Dot as a sphere into the video. Bye bye, until next time.